Welcome back now. The Minister of Sports and Recreation, Fikile Mbalula, says all sporting federations, including rugby, are on course to achieve their transformation targets. Now, as promised earlier on News Channel 404, as well as the earlier bulletins, we got the Minister right here on Sports on Prime. Minister, thank you very much for joining us. The top story that we've been following throughout the whole day, the press conference you had earlier this afternoon at the South African Sports Confederation and Olympic Committee, SASCOC, transformation in sports as a whole, but this one leans slightly towards rugby because I think there was a topic that was heated prior to the World Cup. Let's start there at the press conference. Why the need to call it now?
No, we made a commitment that we'll speak because there was first criticism of the national team. Remember, there was an agency that took us to court, which were respondents together with SARU. And then there was also COSATU, and then all other people in the civil society that raised concerns about the team. But equally, there was Freedom Front Plus that took us to the British High Commissioner. We said that let's support the team. After the World Cup, we'll speak about issues that are raised in relation to transformation. So this is not a knee-jerk reaction. It has always been part of the plan that we'll talk about those issues and respond about the way forward, because we don't believe in leaving issues hanging and people don't understand what is the way forward, what's going on. So we needed to reiterate what we've been doing and what we're doing going forward post the World Cup.
We speak about post the World Cup, but I say it was there prior to the World Cup. Now, the question then I've always asked is, why is it that we always speak of transformation when the World Cup is just around the corner? Because it is an issue that I know personally you have been fighting for quite a while. I think since you came into the position as Sports Ministry, it's always been back there in the back of your mind. It's something that has to be done. Why is it that every time World Cup comes around, then everyone is vocal about a Springbok team that goes to the World Cup?
Look, the question of Tabiso, of why the World Cup, it is South Africans, because our history, where we come from, and issues of transformation, and the plurality, of views in the democratic dispensation allows people to express their views. So there's nothing that you take for granted. So because in the plurality of views, there will be those that are for and against. As you could have seen with the transformation, AfriForum took us to the highest court in the land, in The Hague, that the minister's policy on transformation is detrimental, and undermines the Constitution. But they could not go to Braamfontein because they can't win that, because there's nothing unconstitutional about transformation in sport, because it's an injunction in our own Constitution. But secondly, there are those who say there is lack of transformation. So what guides us here? The risk policy of government on the question of transformation, comprehensive, on what needs to happen. SARU is on board. All federations are on board in terms of 18th of May. We signed an agreement after the barometer survey last year and the EPG report. We signed the barometer on the 18th of May, what needs to happen. We agreed on the targets in terms of 50-50, how that is going to be achieved. We set ourselves a time frame of 5 years. But because there's World Cup, everybody comes on board and start to speak about it as if it's a new issue. It is not. But equally, it is important that people must always raise their views, because the Springboks is the property of the people of South Africa.
You mentioned the 18th of May. It was yourself and all other sporting federations. The agreement is reached. Everybody knows what they need to do. Then comes in this question: if people don't do it, what is the time frame of what you want them to do, and what do you do if they don't do it?
The next World Cup is not the measure. For the first time, in terms of transformation, if they don't do it, we'll deregister the federation. Secondly, we'll withdraw the national colors. Thirdly, we will actually cut the spending. But big federations don't really depend on funding.
Just what I say,
yes, so but it will actually affect them. Fourthly, we will disinvest in supporting teams for bidding for bigger competitions like the World Cups and so on. But what hits hard in all of this is deregistration. Because once we deregister you, you will never participate anywhere in the world without being registered and recognized by the Ministry of Sport. So there is a time frame. Annually, the barometer will tell us whether there is progress or not, but the measure of transformation must not only be reflective at the Springbok level. Yes, there it is non-negotiable. Players must be given a chance. They must participate. And they must not just be selected to do what is called malicious compliance, and then you put them on the bench. No, they must play. As you would have seen, players get selected, and all of a sudden, when they are there, there's a question of merit. How do you select a person not on merit? It doesn't arise. It's dialectically intertwined. You are selected because you play every day. You can't say Lwazim Vovo, who plays for the Sharks, selected in the national team, is a liability, and as a result is selected on the basis to meet ministers' criteria of either the quotas or transformation. He's a player on merit, and at the same time to meet the targets in terms of integration and addressing the policy of transformation with regard to rugby.
The Minister speaks about the 50-50 split. Now, I wouldn't speak particularly with rugby. 50-50, the likelihood and the realistic measures that you're asking, do we see that happening? Because at the end of the day, we need to develop those players from the townships, from wherever we need to get them to fulfill that mandate that you've set up for SARU.
If you look at Springboks now and you look at rugby, you can't say when you open your eyes, there are no players of color, Africans, generic black, you know, who can be selected for the national team. They are there. They are there in the franchises, but they are not given an opportunity. Let's just start there. So there's no point about it, but equally, this transformation is not about the macro level, where you look at only the national team. What happens at Vodacom? What happens at Currie Cup? What happens at school level, where the academy system in terms of the school level is skewed and only continue to, give us players of color, and at the same time, largely affirm the status quo. We are saying we must diversify at that level organically and going forward so that we feed into the system, starting from the grassroots level and at the school level. At the present moment, Thabiso, we can't say we can't transform because there is skewedness and there is an unlevel playing field. What it means is that we need to do our work and ensure that this approach that we have adopted actually works.
You mentioned something at the press conference. The media themselves, they're afraid to take on the people who really should be answering these questions on transformation. For this example, SA Rugby. One could say maybe the minister's taken a swipe at the media. Which role do you feel that the media should be playing, in particular with this? Because there's questions that are put to SARU and sometimes they don't come back to us, and our only stop would be the minister.
Why is SARU left to dry? I mean, not to dry. Why is it left to smell good? When we've got dissatisfaction about the team, we've got dissatisfaction about the coach. Who's supposed to address that? It is SARU. And they know when they meet on the 15th, they must do that. The same as they did with, De Villiers, the coach of the national team. After New Zealand, his contract was not renewed for reasons that are known to the board of SARU, not the minister. I don't employ coaches. Then they employed Hanneke Meyer. Let me tell you, there is a policy of government. When you get employed in your contract, it must include policy. I must not go and have a coffee or tea with the coach. The coach must know that the policy that government has adopted and signed by the federation is part and parcel of what? The coach performance. That must be there. It shouldn't be that it's dependent on Hanneke Meyer. Then if Hanneke Meyer is not aware that he must transform the national team, which is the Springboks, then who is failing? It is the board that employed him. It means they did not do their job to assist the coach to be aware that you have to implement this policy because it is an agreement between us and the minister. Yeah. Now, what are we left with? We are debating a coach, which, of course, we must debate the coach if the coach is not doing what it is expected, like all other people have expressed their views. Yeah. But the fundamental question is that there is leadership, and that leadership must be held accountable. I'm accountable because I have actually taken this policy to cabinet, and now it is policy of government. It must be implemented by all federations. Yeah. That's my job. Those below me who are federations, like in SARU, they equally must be held accountable. They can't be left alone, and then it is business as usual. It is not business as usual. Yeah. They must account, and they must transform the sport of rugby, and not only the coach. It means if it is the coach has not been given the directives.
Yeah.